How important is it for you, for Arizona to get into that 9 to 10 win realm? Where you're squarely to be able, again, I don't necessarily need you finishing 11th in the country, but to have that year where you're around at least 15, 16 to be able to build momentum. The reason I ask you that is this is a pretty talented roster he's going to have. And there's a lot of guys that are probably going to go off to the NFL after this year. You look at, you could have 3 first rounders. How important is it for Brent Brennan to be able to get this thing going with a boom, to have 2 straight really good years for recruiting as well?
It's incredibly important. This might be the most important season in U of A football, like point blank, because you've had a lot of people put a lot of money into this program and the NIL front. You have a lot of talent on this roster. You have high expectations on this roster. And if you come in and you lay an egg and go 6, 7, 8 wins, that's going to deflate a lot of people. So you got to win at least 9 is the minimum. You have to win 9.
I agree.
I think you should be in that running to win 10 or 11. You're going to get the occasional hiccup, I think, especially in the Big 12. But as long as you're in contention for the CFP, that's the thing to me, is like, you got to be in contention for the CFP all the way to the end. Then you can live with the results. But if Brennan falls flat, then there's just going to be a lot of bad juju around this program. And that's not ideal.
I can't have 7 and 6. I can't have something like that. And here's the thing too, Saul, is that Arizona football under Dick Tomey had some very good seasons, but there's also some revisionist history. I think that the problem with Dick Tomey is he was never able to, as you know, he was never able to build on it. He would have the one monster year in 94, and then you would fall back into a 7 and 5, a 6 and 6. Then in 98, you have the 12 and 1 year. Then the next game, you get blown out by Penn State by 9,000 points. They're still, Kajana Carter is still scoring.
Yeah, LeVar Arrington is still making sacks.
Courtney Brown is still in there. I mean, so that has been the one thing. Arizona, whenever they've got to a high precipice, has never been able to build on that. And I think that's been something that's been able to hold Arizona back. This is a year where you've got a stud quarterback. You've got arguably the best wide receiver in college football. You got a first-round lineman. You got a first-round DB. You've returning 16 to 22 starters. You got to capitalize here. And again, I know it's not a easy thing to ask a first-year coach at the U of A, but at the same time, Brent Brennan's also been a head coach long enough to know, I think that, I think he knows that the expectations are here, and I think he should be able to get there.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to ask. It's also not an easy thing to get into a new conference, new environments, not knowing what to expect at certain places. Routines can get a little thrown off. Listen, a lot of these guys have not traveled to Orlando to play a team like UCF. They haven't traveled to Manhattan, Kansas to play a team like Kansas State. Like, those are completely different environments. And literally those two specifically are wildly different environments. Yeah, Orlando for sure. And then Manhattan, Kansas, right? And so
you're neck of the woods.
What's that?
Your neck of the woods, Manhattan, Kansas.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So there's a lot of variability there. That's why I think if you get 2 losses, I think 2 is the right number. I think if you have 3 or 4, something probably went a little bit wrong. Maybe you had an injury that was too significant to overcome. I think 2, you get 2 bumps in the road, 10 and 2 heading into maybe the conference championship or the CFP. I can live with that, but you lose 3 or 4, then you're starting to get a little bit on shaky ground, and you got to hope that the rest of the country is also having a tough time of it as well.
And it becomes, let's be honest, it becomes a lot easier to recruit if you have 2 straight 10-win seasons, especially with everything. I mean, kids here's what kids like. They like money, they like winning, and they like being on TV. It's those, I'm not even sure in which order, outside if I know that money is first. And so if you have 2 straight 10-win seasons, it's a lot easier to be able to push that momentum when you're recruiting and you're like, all right, well, listen, man, this isn't just a 1-year thing. And you can also sell, listen, you got Noah Fafita coming back for a couple more years. We're going to be able to fill it, the transfers and whatnot. It just makes life a lot easier. Saul Bookman, you and I are on the same page. 9 wins minimum for me. 9 wins minimum.
Yeah. I agree. Listen, man, this is the most excited I've been for a U of A season in quite a while, because like you said before, when we had good years, we typically lost some players and then we kind of fell off a little bit. The only time I can recall that not happening was after we went to the Fiesta Bowl and we came back. Scooby returned, but then Scooby got hurt in like the very first game of the season against UTSA, and everything went downhill from there. And that was just tragic. And you can't repeat that. You have to build on what happened last year, because you got all the momentum going your way. You also don't want to gas all the haters, because there's a lot of people that are like, oh, they really think highly of themselves and blah, blah, blah. They're not really that great and blah. Yeah, okay, whatever. Arizona is legit. They are a really, really good team. If they should falter and lose more than 3 games this season, that's a complete failure on the coaching staff, not just the players. So I think they all understand. I think they're working hard as hell to try and make sure that they live up to those expectations. Because I think externally, our expectations are about like, hey, let's not lose 2 or 3 games. Let's make sure we can get to the college football playoff. I think if we got to the CFP, we'd be happy with whatever the results are. I think internally, I think their goals are much higher. But they're not going to say them. But I think that their goals are much higher. They want to win the conference. They want to win the Big 12 their first year, and they want to get to the Final Four of the CFP. I would be shocked if they didn't feel that way.
We're going to get into the Big 12 here in a second, because some of the ESPN power rankings are out. And Joseph, yes, TMac, they expect him to be fully moving around everything within 2 months. They have no worries about him, so he should be good.